Today's case is titled Deadly Alleyway. Once we get into the facts, you'll understand why that title was given to the case. Over my 43-year career as a prosecutor for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, I handled hundreds and hundreds of homicide cases. And they all fit into various categories. Some were very malicious, some were methodical. But people ask me, what is the worst of all those homicide cases that you've seen, you've worked on? Now there's one that stands out, and it's one that I've never talked about, I've never lectured on, because it's so vile, it's so horrific. However, I think there's a lesson that can be learned about human nature in this case. So I put this presentation together, and you'll see that the two killers in this case, they didn't commit the crime because they had mental illness, they were delusional or schizophrenic, or they were under the influence of drugs or alcohol. These two killers killed 4 innocent people because of unadulterated greed on their part. So let's get into the facts of the case and see what we can learn about human nature. Well, what is our topic today? Deadly Alleyway, better known as the Govin brothers. Well, what's it all about? Well, it has something to do about a tourist attraction in Los Angeles called Universal Studios. It's an entertainment place. It's a studio where many motion pictures and TV programs are made. People want to visit. They want to see what it's all about. And the location. As we know, location is important in real estate. Also, if you're a tourist, you want to stay at a place near Universal Studios. And what better place than right across the street from the entrance of Universal Studios, there's 2 motels. One is run by the Kumar family. They have one of them, and the Govin brothers has another motel. So both families are from India, and they've been in the hotel business for a long time. Hard-working families, and they're right adjacent to each other. And both of them were doing very well in the motel business, and they wanted to expand. They wanted to have more rooms. They could make more money. So where are the locations of the two? As I said, they're right across the street from the entrance to Universal Studios. Here, you can see that. This is Universal City Inn, this one here, and this is the Studio Place Inn, which is right next door to it. And both of them, well, one of them is larger than the other. The Universal City Inn one, quite large. You can see it. Coinga Boulevard right there. And the entrance to Universal is right across the street, directly across. And next to it is called the Studio Place Inn, a little bit smaller, and it's an older motel, but they're right adjacent to each other. So that gives you an idea of the location of the two of them. Now, what they have in common is an alleyway. There's an alley that goes behind both of the motels. Extends all the way from the street all the way over to the end of it. Now, over the years, various reasons, it really wasn't needed. They didn't need it. Didn't want an alleyway where there'd be a lot of traffic going in and out. So it had been blocked off. It was closed off on the KUMAR'S side. You can see what it looked like. And then on the Govin side, that's the other side. So all these years, it has been closed, not being used. However, the KUMAR'S wanted to remodel. they wanted to expand. They wanted to put in more bedrooms. So in order to do that, the city said, you're going to have to open that alleyway. It's got to be reopened if you want to have more units. So the KUMAR'S said, okay, we'll go along with reopening it. They had no difficulty with it. Now, as far as the Govins, they really didn't want it reopened because they wanted to put new units in exactly where the alleyway easement was. So their remodeling plans are to close it. So you can see we've got a problem here between the two motels. One wants it open, the other one wants it closed. And how is it going to get resolved? Well, that's the issue. Here we have the Universal City Inn, very large, and they want to make it larger. And the Studio Place Inn, a lot smaller, but it's crucial that they have that alley closed so that they can build new units on the alleyway. And this is just a review. You can see what it looked like when it was blocked off. Everybody was happy with it because there was no traffic coming in. And for safety reasons, it was good that it was closed. But now the city says it's going to have to be opened. Now, how are they going to work this out? So we have Gita Kumar. She's the one as the Universal City Inn, and she meets with the Govin. The Govin brothers go up to her house and they sit down and talk to her, and they explain, we need to keep this closed. And she listens to it, and they say, well, just sign here. All you have to do is sign on this, and everything will be fine. And she says, no, we have to have it open if we want to expand. So she refuses to go along with keeping the alleyway closed. Now, the city was going to have a hearing on it. It was on May 10th, 2002. And at that hearing, it would be decided whether the city would order that it be reopened. And the KUMAR'S said, well, we want to do the remodeling. We need it reopened. And that hearing is set. And that commission was going to make the decision that was going to really affect the livelihood of both of these Indian families. So a lot was at stake. And the KUMAR'S, they lived on top of the Hollywood Hills. And they had a very nice home up there, beautiful view from there. And I guess you'd call it a flag lot, meaning it was set back from the street. You had a long driveway you'd have to go down in order to get to their house. And that was where they were located. Now, May 4th, 2002, that's several days before that meeting by the city, about 11 p.m., it was Mr. Kumar is driving home. That's his car. He's driving up the hill to his house at about 11. And as he gets there, he sees his house, and he goes down that long driveway. And here you can see his car. That's his car coming in, and he parks it right there. And something looks like there's smoke. There's smoke coming out of the house, and a neighbor comes up to him and says, what's going on? What's going on? And Mr. Kumar doesn't know what's going on. So the neighbor says, I think there's a fire, and calls 911. So this is the front doors. You can see they go up to that front door, and there's smoke, there's heat. They can't open it because there's so much heat on that. So the fire department is called. Now, it takes a while for the fire department to get there because this is way up on the hill in the Hollywood Hills. So it takes them about 8 to 10 minutes for the fire department to get a unit there. And as soon as they get to the front door, they're able to break it open, and they go in, and this is what they see. This is exactly what they see. There's fire damage all the way along. The smoke is very, very, very thick. And they go down the hallway, and they go by one of the bedrooms. They look in the bedroom, and they can see, there's been a lot of heat damage and smoke damage to the bedroom. And They're trying to find the origin. Where is the fire coming from? And they go to the kitchen because most fires start in the kitchen, but they don't see any source of the fire there in the kitchen, like a grease fire or something from the stove. And they keep going into the living room, and they can see all the smoke damage at the top, but the furniture is all kind of left alone. Seems very strange. What type of fire would cause all of this? So they go down this hallway. It's a long hallway, and they're trying to see if they can find the origin. And there's a small bedroom, and the door is closed there, and they get the door open. And as soon as they open the door, this is what they see inside. It's completely burned, completely destroyed, and they find bodies. There are burnt bodies on the floor in that little bedroom. Wow. What does all that mean? Well, this just gives you an idea as to where the bodies were in that little bedroom. This is a schematic. So all 4 individuals of the Kumar family are there. And arson investigators are called in to start the investigation. What is going on? So the first thing they're looking for is forced entry. And you can see from the doorknob there and the latch, there isn't any forced entry. There's no marks of a screwdriver or channel lock or anything like that. And then they look for origin of the fire. And they find 3 separate places where there's a tremendous amount of charring. And they take samples of that to see if there's an accelerant. And sure enough, there is. There is, like gasoline, or it's a solvent of some type. What does all that mean? Well, then they go over and they're looking, could it be residential robbery? But there's money right there. And the jewelry isn't taken. So it doesn't look like that it was a robbery. The more they looked at it, they could tell something had happened there. The duct tape had been placed on the eyes, the mouth of the victims, and then zip ties were used on their hands and on their feet. As well, there's a zip tie around their neck that had been tightened, very tight, as though to strangle somebody. Wow, what is this? What's going on there? Well, what about the individuals who were killed? Could there be a motive to kill them? Well, we have Paris and Tulsi. They were the children, the Kumar children. They had no gang types, no criminal. They had no enemies. They were very well liked. As a matter of fact, Pars was a student at UC San Diego. No, that didn't make any sense as far as any enemies who'd want to get even with them. And as far as the grandmother, Saban Patel, she was deeply loved in the Indian community. She was well thought of, very hardworking, no enemies at all. And then you have Gita. Wow. No criminal activity at all, though. One of the most hardest, working people that you'd ever find. There was that, business dispute about the alley and the expansion and remodeling, but, it didn't look like there was anything that popped out as far as a motive to kill Gita. Anyway, what we do know is that TV news reported on the fire and indicating it was an arson. So on May 6th, this televise of the news came on, and people looked at it. And the reporters made the statement that the husband, Mr. Kumar, is the suspect in the killing of his family. And, viewers, there's one viewer in particular, his name is Angel. He was watching TV that night. He had turned on the news, and he saw that. And he saw this fire, this arson. And, he's wondering, okay, what's that all about? He didn't quite understand. And then they showed a picture of the house, the Kumar's house, and he looked at it and remembered the door, and he remembered, that he had been at a house up in the Hollywood Hills that looked just like that. It was a month ago. He was there, and it involved two Indian families. There was some type of dispute about an alley or something. But he looks at it, and, well, is not certain as, whether that really was the place or not. And he got in his car, and he drove up to that house that he had gone to a month before, and he could look down the driveway, and he could see, yes, it was scorched. There was fire damage at the top of the house. Now he knew, wow, that is the house that I was at earlier. So he goes back to his house, and he contacts the TV station, and he talks to them and says, he wants to talk to the reporter. And they come and say, well, contact the police. And he said, no, I don't want to talk to the police. I want to talk to the reporter. And that seemed strange to the TV station, but they said, okay, we'll put you in contact with the TV reporter. And she called him. The reporter called him, and he went on about, you got it all wrong. It isn't the husband who, is the killer of the victims. He was not involved. He had nothing to do with it. And the reporter listened to it, and she really didn't know what to do and what to say. She said, okay, let's get together. And let's get together at a restaurant, and we'll talk about it. And Angel said, okay, I'll meet you at a restaurant. And it was agreed that they would go to Denny's restaurant. But in the meantime, the reporter contacted the police department and said, I don't know what's going on here, but this guy wants to meet with me at Denny's to talk about this arson. And the detective said, oh, okay, we'll set it up. Yeah, we'll go with you. So the detective went with the reporter, and he acted as though he was with the reporter. He worked for the TV station, and they met with Angel, and Angel starts talking and explaining, he said, I don't want to get involved in this thing. I have no reason to get involved in it. But all I want to do is explain to you that it wasn't the husband. The husband didn't have anything to do with the arson or killing his family. Then he mentions, he says, it was a dispute over an alley. There was an alleyway behind their business, a motel that they had near Universal Studios. And he said, it was the person in the adjacent motel who was trying to do something to the KUMAR'S. And the detective said, oh, okay. And he says, okay. And he gets the description, and then he gets a photograph of that neighbor who ran the motel next to him. And Angel positively identified Victor Govin as the person who had taken him up to the KUMAR'S house a month before. And they kind of had an axe to grind about an alleyway. Wow. Now the detective thinks, okay. He continues to talk to Angel, and he says, yeah, there was another person. There was another person that went up there with us, and his name was Carlos. His name was Carlos, and he was a Hispanic gentleman, and they said, okay, do you have his phone number? And he said, yeah, I got his cell phone number right here. And he gives the cell phone number of a Carlos. So now the detectives have the name of a person who was up there and has his cell phone number. And then he goes on and says, yeah, he drives a gray pickup. And they did, oh, he does? Okay. And the detectives knew from security cameras that they saw a gray pickup going up the hill, at 8:59 p.m. of the date of the fire. And here you can see at pickup, and we have this gray pickup that goes up earlier and comes down at 11:02, and 6 minutes after that, Mr. KUMAR drives up the street to his house. So here they are able to combine the two. This is Carlos' truck that the detectives get photographs of a little later on, and they compare it up to that pickup truck that went up the street, and it matches. So now they know Carlos had something to do with it. So the more they checked it out, they knew that they needed to talk to this Carlos, and they found out that the Govin brothers, there's two of them, Victor, that we know have identified, and then Peter was his brother, and they both own that motel. And Carlos was a friend of theirs, and he's the one that's driving the pickup truck. So the detectives do surveillance of all three of them and see that they are always in contact. They're meeting all the time. And then they get search warrants on the phone records and shows that they're constantly in contact with each other. So the detectives then go out and arrest Carlos. And they bring him in, they advise him of his Miranda rights, and they didn't know if he would be willing to talk or not. But he waived his rights. He said, yeah, I'm more than happy to talk. I'll talk to you about it. And he explained, he said, he went up there with the Govins, the two brothers, up to the house. Yep, I did that. He says, yeah, they killed the KUMAR'S. And he gives all the details as to how they went about killing him with the zip ties and the manner in which the killings occurred. So then the detectives realize, okay, we have something here. Would he be willing to testify against the brothers? And Carlos agreed to it. He agreed to testify in court against the Govin brothers. And he did it. He went to court, he testified, gave all the information of driving him up there. They all went inside. They got all four of the victims, and they they used duct tape over their mouth and over their eyes and did zip ties. So the Govin brothers then were charged, and these were the charges against them: multiple murder, financial gain, robbery, burglary, kidnapping, and arson. So these were all the charges they went on trial for. And these are the victims that we talked about earlier, the KUMAR family. A very hardworking family, and the two children had such a bright future ahead of them. And as to the Govin brothers, they were both convicted of the 4 murders, and they were sentenced to the death penalty. Both Victor and Peter Govin. And you think about it, it all was about this alleyway behind the 2 motels. And you have to ask yourself, was it worth it? If you want more information on the Govin brothers case, get my book, Prosecute Tricks. It's all laid out there and all the details. Now, if you like these podcasts, subscribe. And that way you'll know when our next one is coming out. Generally, one comes out every Friday at 3 p.m. Well, hopefully you will join us again for another True Crime Files of Los Angeles, when we discuss another case from beginning to end. See you then.